Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Franchise Advisory Board, where we bring in experts from the franchise community to share expertise, wisdom, and tactical, actionable items that will help you improve your franchise brand, your franchisee's performance. And to that end, I've got a great guest with me today. A lot of you probably know Scott Greenberg. And if you don't, you've been under some sort of a rock somewhere in this industry because I see him everywhere. He's been to a lot of franchise brand conferences presenting as an expert. And yes, I use the E word, and I don't always throw that out here. But let me tell you about Scott, just in case you're a little new to the industry and you need to know him. He's a writer. He's written two great books. In fact, you can see him right over his shoulder, The Wealthy Franchisee, Stop the Shift Show. He is a Dodgers fan, which I appreciate as well. We didn't talk about that, but well done, Scott. But Scott's also he's a performance coach. He helps franchise brands figure out how to help their franchisees really thrive, which I'm sure is what inspired the book. But I'll let you tell that story. He's also been the creator of a couple of online courses because he gets pulled in a lot of directions to present and talk and share and try to coach. It's hard to do that at scale. And he's created some online resources to help people. One aligns extremely well with the Wealthy Franchisee course, and it's called the Wealthy Franchisee Business Breakthrough. Is that right?
Wealthy Franchisee Business Breakthrough Program. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, I almost got it. And then the other one's called HEMS, the Hourly Employee Management Program. Any of you guys who are managing hourly folks, again, I think that you might want to look up Scott, take a look at what he's got put together there. A couple of fun things about Scott I didn't know before we started chatting was a two-time cancer survivor. Wow. Congratulations. Glad you're with us, my friend. And then met his wife in a club called the Viper Room at a Sex Pistols party. That just made you like your badassery just like went this far up in my mind.
Right?
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for being here. Proud dad of two kids. Scott, tell us just a little bit more about you and what you've been working on. Then we'll jump into our topic, which is about what are the ways of a wealthy franchisee? How do we help franchisees really develop? So before we go there, tell us about yourself a bit more, Scott.
You were so thorough, you didn't leave much left. So why don't we just talk about the Dodgers?
Yeah, well, I don't
Like,
know if I want to talk about the Dodgers after the last couple of games, but we
oh,
can.
right, brutal, brutal, tough times. I actually grew up in San Diego, so if it does end up being the Padres who go to the big show, I'll be okay with that. But come on, Dodgers. Yeah, I make a living helping franchisees grow their businesses, and I'm interested in the human side of business. So there's a lot of great people out there talking about AI, technology, marketing.
Mhm.
That stuff is so important, and that's not my area of interest. I'm interested in the human side of business, how we think, how we lead, and on how we serve. So it's the mindset of the franchisee, all those things that, because most franchisees don't realize they are the biggest factor in their business, for better or for worse. So I help them understand how to make sure that they are an asset to their own business. But also it's the interpersonal skills, the way they attract or not, great employees, how they engage them, and really understanding how to lead them and boost performance. And that leads, of course, then to the customer experience. We want to turn our customers into repeat customers who also become spokespersons for our business. Starts with us. And so that is what I write about and think about. And inspired by what happened after that first book, a lot of people coming to me wanting to know more about managing employees. So I wrote my second book, Stop the Shift Show, which is about how hourly employees are different from those on salary and what it takes to engage them, to attract them, to inspire them, and boost their performance. And I write about a lot of great places that have cracked the code and figured out how to do it. So again, it's all part of the human side of business. That's the stuff that I find fascinating and love to talk about. Excuse me, love to talk about with different franchise brands.
Yeah, well, I love that, and it's interesting because so many brands like normally people think, oh, fast food restaurant when they think of hourly. So many different concepts depend upon hourly employees. They depend upon these strategies that you've helped develop that help their franchisees be successful, and especially emerging brands don't often have the resources to do the type of coaching that they need to do to help their franchisees become successful. And I'd be curious to get your take on this, Scott. It's kind of hot take before we jump into the main topic, but where a lot of the trainings and programs that I've seen really are dependent upon a lot of human touch. What are some ways, as we start talking through these ideas of ways you can improve the franchisee success rate, what are some of the ways a franchise brand can create systems and processes around that don't depend as much upon like FBC execution?
Sure. Well, so it's a great question. And there's some things that are built into the franchise industry that have made this difficult.
Hmm.
The promise of a franchise brand is typically, we're going to teach you everything you need to know to be successful. Most brands don't make good on that promise because they don't know everything that the person needs to know. They know their own system really well, which in
Yeah.
my opinion should be enough,
Yeah.
right? Like if my system can give me great soft skills and support me and they understand psychology, that's great, but that's gravy. Like find me a system that's got a great operation that I can replicate and gives me great support and great marketing. That's great. But then on my own, I need to kind of seek out these other things. But wouldn't it be great if some of these franchise brands could offer more support, both in terms of understanding the mindset of the right kind of franchisee, so they know how to manage their time, so they know how to manage their emotions, right? So they can embrace change and have the good social skills.
Hmm.
But then just as important is you mentioned like how reliant the franchise industry is on hourly workers. 58% of all jobs in the US are these hourly jobs, probably a greater number within the franchise industry, right? It's obvious in things like quick service and hospitality, but it's amazing how many sectors of franchising rely on hourly workers. But most franchise brands are reluctant to say anything about how to manage hourly workers because they've been conditioned to be worried about being called joint employers.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of lawyers have misguided them because we're not talking about dictating policy or rules and regulations, HR stuff. That might be a joint employer, but teaching franchisees what culture is and how to build it, how to motivate people, generally speaking, that kind of support, and I have franchise lawyers who back me up on this, that's
Mhm.
not getting into joint employer territory. So I wish that more franchisors provided that support. Actually, now I'm finding they don't, because that's where I come in. So,
Yeah.
I want to position myself as that third party to offer that kind of training, that support. I just had a Zoom today with a Tommy's Car Wash Systems, awesome franchise brand. They
Yeah.
had me speak at their franchise conference. They're bringing me back to do a 2-hour session for all of their site leaders, all of the managers throughout the company, training them specifically on managing the hourly teams. So I would love to see more franchisors get involved in that. I'd love to be a resource to help make that happen.
I love it. Well, I mean, this I think feeds in very nicely into the topic we were going to talk about today, which is what are the ways of a wealthy franchisee? It's going to be hard not to incorporate those things we just talked about into that. But talk to me just a little bit about these myths. I think you just talked about one, like the joint employer, like fear and fear mongering that's been going on. Like it creates a lot of, it shrouds a lot of things in mysticism. But what are some of the other key myths you find about franchisee success that can be can hamstring the success of a franchise?
Yeah. And I don't want to call the joint employer thing a myth because I think it's a legitimate concern, probably
Yeah.
less so today than maybe a few years ago. Um, but it's something that's real. But yeah, a lot of the fear around it is misguided. But there are
Yeah.
a lot of myths in franchising as to why there are top franchisees in a system who outdo everyone else. The most common one is, well, they just have a good location.
Yeah.
And that's just simply not true because as every franchisor will tell you about, a great franchisee who took over a struggling location that the first owner thought was just a lemon, and
Yeah.
they built it up and they made it successful. I personally did that.
Mhm.
I was a franchisee for 10 years. I built my first location. The second one we acquired, it was struggling. And, the first owner thought their location was terrible. Their first location was adequate. We
Mhm.
had it profitable within a year just by doing the same things with the first. So, location that you necessarily need to have a big business background.
Yeah.
That maybe these people are the favorites of the franchisor. That successful franchisees work the hardest or work the longest.
Mhm.
That's simply not true. Um, so there's a lot of things that, and look, we want to, when we don't do well, we want to scapegoat, we want to blame something out of our control, such as, oh, it's my location, or it's because of who's in, I was doing my due diligence, interviewing a bunch of franchisees for a brand I was going to speak to. This one guy immediately started blaming politics. In the meantime, there's other people in his system who are really doing well,
Yeah.
right? And I
Well,
live in California, right? Which, Matt Hauer from IFA loves to call it the People's Republic of California,
that's what I actually call it in my slides
right?
sometimes. Yeah.
And in spite of all the business challenges we have out here, there's a lot of franchises making plenty of money. I had two of them for a long time. So a lot of myths that are there.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the ways the wealthy franchisees, they really excel in the areas that matter. Yes, of
Mhm.
course, they run tight operations, but that's not the secret to success. That's just the prerequisite. What makes these people stand out is mastery of those human elements. So they keep their emotions in check and make decisions based on data.
Mhm.
They are focusing on continuous improvement. Even when they rank number one, they push themselves to break their own records and they never stop wanting to improve. And so part of that means embracing change. So they're really good when the franchisor rolls out with a new program of wanting to try it. And they're willing to fail with the franchisor. So at
Right.
least they're innovating, trying, because not innovating, not doing things differently, as we all know, is a kiss of death.
Right.
Right? They manage their time well. I
Mhm.
have a panel coming up. I'm speaking at the QSR Evolution conference in a few weeks.
Mhm.
I'm going to be interviewing one person who owns 275 Papa John's restaurants.
Okay. That's
He has the
massive.
same amount of hours in a day as a single unit owner, but he's learned how to manage his time in a way so he can replicate himself. He focuses on the things that matter and building the business, not just, being the one who's personally making pizzas, deliveries, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's all that interpersonal management. And then again, they're great with employees. They're great with customers. They focus on making people feel good. At the end I'm spending a long time answering your question, but it's a really big question. You asked
It
me the
is.
ways the wealthy. So I got to summarize my entire book. Let me narrow it down to three things. First, they control their thoughts and emotions. They keep a clear head. Number two, they stick to the proven system and
Mhm.
work well with the franchisor. And number three, it's broad, but it makes a lot of sense. They use their business to improve the lives of everyone it touches.
Mhm.
Customers, suppliers, their employees. They wake up thinking, how can I improve all of those around me? And that boomerang effect does magical things for the business.
Yeah. No, and I would love, as you might imagine, I'd love to dive into a few of those items with you. This idea that the human element, you mentioned this early on, like you really love and focus on the human element. Can we talk about the core, like the corollary here? So if you've got a franchise owner, let's say, great business background, well funded, and they come in, but their people skills are lacking. What do you typically see? What does the franchisor see in their performance record? Or what do they see in their employee effort? Like what are the symptoms of somebody who maybe is struggling with those people skills, which is so critical to their success?
I think usually what they see is a performance ceiling that maybe they have a great location and maybe they've got some great business sense. And that goes a long way. Those things are important, but they're still going to struggle with finding and more importantly, keeping employees.
Mhm.
They're still going to struggle getting great reviews from customers and miss out on the opportunity of turning those customers into higher paying customers, into repeat customers, and spokespersons for the brand.
Mhm.
So they might be able to keep the business going, but they're leaving money on the table. That's what they see with those kinds of people. And I'm not suggesting that's all just soft skills and we can smile and attitude our way to success. Like the business acumen has to be there, right? We've got to like maximize revenue and we need to minimize expenses. We need to maintain inventory. Like we need to deliver and keep our promises to customers and right products and services. And we have to tell the right story and market a whole lot.
Yeah.
That allows us to run an adequate business. But to make it a great business and to outdo the competition, we need to add that human element. That really is that force multiplier.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you digging into that with me a little bit, and we may come back to it. But there were two other elements that you talked about, and I'd like to dig into. You talk about following the program and innovating. This may feel like a paradox, right? But it shouldn't be. But let's first like dig into like why do the most successful franchise operators typically stick with the program? How does that make them successful? And then we want to talk about the other side of that, which is and then how do you innovate in that space? But let's talk about step one first. Like, why is that so critical?
Well, I think that first of all, a great franchise system is really good and it pushes to get even better
Hmm.
because the competition is doing the same thing. So we have to evolve, we have to change. Consumer tastes are changing,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
The political environment is changing, the weather is changing, everything is constantly changing. So we create a system, prove that it works, and then make sure it continues to work as everything around it changes. I think really great franchisees, they get into franchising because they want to mitigate risk. So rather than being a mom and pop and trying to figure it out on their own,
Hmm.
they find a franchise system that's already figured it out. And they realize that they paid a franchise fee and a royalty to outsource the innovation, to outsource, right? So they just want to align with that proven system. Now, as we all know, franchisors make mistakes
Yeah.
and they make changes.
Mhm.
I was a franchisee for 10 years and I did not always agree with my franchisor. And I would sometimes speak out and push back and resist. And sometimes I was right.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, I'd say I was right about 20% of the time and they were wrong. But one day it occurred to me if I just do what they say, I can be right with them 80% of the time, which is a lot better than I would have done on my own. So you're
Mhm.
mitigating risk by all this is, of course, assuming you've really vetted your franchisor. Otherwise, why did you buy into it?
Yeah.
Um, but you get into it to mitigate risk, and as soon as you deviate from the system, you're now exposing yourself to that very risk you originally wanted to mitigate. So I think that these people do that, but then they understand that a really great system, part of it is some good R&D,
Yeah.
some good innovation,
Mhm.
so that they can stay relevant. So they stick to the proven system and they evolve and change with the system. And when the system changes in a way that's not good or it's a mistake, they give their input, they give their feedback, but they communicate that in a way that's constructive rather than doing what so many franchisees do. These idiots, they don't know what they're doing and they're greedy and they don't,
Yeah.
hopefully it's a franchisor who's got some skin in the game with company-owned stores. Maybe they've attempted some of these things and they're willing to admit when they're wrong and they learn and we all move forward.
Yeah, no, well, and I don't, we didn't talk about this before. My wife and I just sold our franchises in January. So they would, if they were on this call, they would say, yeah, Dave was the same way. Like I did like to innovate. We actually helped them develop some new programs that were extremely successful while we were there. And I love that kind of stuff. And also don't love being told what to do sometimes, but being a franchise owner, you have to be told what to do. Like you legally are obligated to be told what to do sometimes. And there are good reasons why. And so like I appreciate your perspective on that. The 20/80 rule, I don't know if mine was quite the same ratio, but maybe that's more ego talking. But they were also a lot younger and they weren't as developed. So there was a lot of kind of white space to like fine tune things and build.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, what attracted me to them in the first place. Because plug me into a situation where I've got to just like live in the box. That's hard for me to personally do. So I think it was
Yeah.
right for us.
I think the younger the system, the more you need to expect that there's going to be changes and
Yeah.
be okay with that and not think that they're greedy or incompetent or dishonest because they're advocating. They're learning their business just like we are learning ours.
Yeah.
But if we can put together a strong collaboration where there's room for mistakes and room for innovation, but good communication, well, then we can all figure this out together. The
Yeah.
alternative is to go at it alone. And in which case, why even
Why did you buy a
work on
franchise?
franchising at all, right?
Right. Yeah. And we see it all the time though, right? Franchise brand. I work with hundreds of franchise brands and as they're commiserating with me sometimes about the franchisee that was like Dave Hansen, right? Be like, oh, I've got this guy and he just thinks he needs to innovate right now. And really, like we're a burger joint. Like how much innovation is it? Just go like sell burgers, like sell more burgers and sell them at a better profit and manage your labor and your inventory expense. Like sometimes innovation is not appropriate. But you talked about creating a system, like a system that facilitates innovation and creativity and communication. What are, I mean, FACs come right to my mind. Like that feels like the right, that seems like a healthy place where there should be a balance of innovation both ways and creativity, exchange of ideas. What are some other tools that some of the best franchise brands you've worked with are using to foster creativity and innovation and communication within a healthy boundary?
It's such a great question because, there are a lot of franchisors who just say, all right, we're going to go ahead and remodel. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to introduce this new product, but it's going to involve construction, right? And my first response is, all right, well, show me the data. Show me where you've done it. Show
Hmm.
me where you've seen it. Help me understand the why behind it. And I know you can't give me some guarantees, but at least give me some data and give me some evidence. I think that's reasonable, as opposed to force me to be your guinea pig, up on my own dime.
Yes.
So it's not that I believe that every franchise brand should own their own company store. I like it when they do because, for the reasons
Mhm.
we just discussed.
Right.
But I do think that there should be some data that goes along with their decisions, just as there should be some data that goes along with me as a franchisee. I shouldn't do things based on gut or what I want to happen. And so
Mhm.
I think a good franchisor that they do innovate to stay relevant, but the first part of any, it's the research and development. That means testing and getting the data. So when they announce to franchisees, they say, here's the change that we're making, here's why, here's where we've made the change, and this was the result. Like, show me that information
Mhm.
so that I'm not, so I can have some buy-in here.
Yeah.
And in the process, get feedback from your FAC,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think an FAC should be more than just, well, okay, you're our communication system. So we're going to talk to you so you can talk to everyone else. And then we'll ask you questions and pretend to be interested in your answers so we
Mhm.
can say that we consulted with the FAC. Like, the FAC, these are some sophisticated people who are out there. They
Mhm.
should be part of the R&D.
Yeah, they should be the operators that you trust to innovate, right? They should be the ones that you want to hear. And frankly, they shouldn't all be yes men either. You need the ones that I always, well, I was on FACs, but I've talked to brands that are getting big enough they need to create one, and they don't go to conferences and things. They didn't know much about structures and tools. So I advise them get an FAC and get two of the people. If you're gonna have six people, have two of them or one at least be the dissenter, the smart dissenter that you know is intelligent, is making things. And then the other ones have a couple of yes men that are going to love everything you do, and then have a couple of neutral parties, but they should all be respected operators in the ecosystem, or else you're wasting your time. And but it's important you have the dissension in there because you should manage it there rather than manage it after you deploy. It's so much easier, and they'll have good ideas, right? They look at things differently.
Yeah, well, I think a really great system should embrace dissent, should want to encourage, debate. I learned in college that the whole idea, that you take, a thesis against a antithesis, antithesis, and
Uh-huh.
then together you get synthesis, right? Our whole, government system, in an ideal world, is based off of different ideas coming together, having healthy debate, and then let's figure this out. The
Yeah.
alternative is all yes men, and then go group think, right?
No.
We don't want that.
Mm-mm.
No, not when there's unknowns and we have to kind of figure stuff out. So but we need to have dissent and disagreement in a way that's constructive. You and I can totally disagree on something without being disagreeable. And I think that most franchisees and franchisors can do a better job of promoting that constructive communication.
Yeah. Well, I think frankly, let's broaden that for a minute. I think this world right now needs a lesson in how to disagree without being disagreeable. Like it's so difficult sometimes, family gatherings, hanging out with friends, and somebody's going off about something you don't agree with, and all of a sudden there's conflict where I feel like as a society we had a lot more emotional intelligence a decade ago. Where that wasn't normal. It wasn't okay to be disagreeable. You could be like, well, hey, Steve, I respect that that's your opinion. Tell me how you came to that conclusion. Like maybe explore, be curious. Like it's so much. In fact, I should ask you, the expert, like how can you help a franchisee that's being disagreeable learn how to disagree with a little more emotional intelligence?
It's funny you mentioned the idea of like, our country. Like we're literally called, there's an adjective in our name, right? United, right?
Right.
The word indivisible is in the Pledge of Allegiance, right? The whole idea is unity, and that's something I feel like we should all embrace. And it's unfortunate that that is not the case. So yeah, you get a franchisee who is disagreeable, who actively wants to um, create opposition within the system. They start some Facebook group or some chat that's all about talking about what idiots, corporate is. And corporate might be idiots and they might be wrong. The
Yeah.
question is, does that chat group address that in a healthy way, right? Or are you
Yeah.
just putting fuel on the fire? And how often in those chat groups does someone come back and say, hey, actually, I talked to someone in corporate and I got a totally different perspective and it turns out we're wrong. How often is that comment made in that group?
Not
Right?
often. Yeah.
Or
People.
for that matter, on cable news when it
Yeah.
comes
I
to
know.
politics, right? It's like we don't want to
Yeah.
so in psychology, it's called confirmation bias,
Yeah.
right? And we want to surround ourselves with people who already agree with what we have, and we can't grow that way. And so, yeah, so I think we need, I, one of the reasons I wrote this in the book and why I created my course, the Wealthy Franchisee Business Breakthrough Program, is to teach franchisees what their role is in this.
Yeah.
That you got to, look, your franchisor should meet you halfway, but you got to, take care of your side of the street and make sure you talk to your franchisor rather than about your franchisor because you're in this together. It's a marriage.
Yeah, a little more legally difficult than a marriage, right? The franchise agreement, harder to get out of, as it turns out.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you can't sell your asset in a marriage and get out of it. It's not, it doesn't work that way.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
But
well,
it's the people stuff.
yeah, the
And
people.
some people just don't have good people skills. So, we need to give each other some grace. All right, my franchisor made a mistake. All right. Am I sure they're evil? Am I sure they don't care about me at all? Like, because that's the things that people say. It's like, why don't we be a better version of ourselves first? So, and I'd say the same thing to franchisors, though, that you got to give your franchisees a break, that you have to give them information, that you really have to step. I mean, I don't hold franchisors less accountable or less responsible for these things than I do franchisees.
Yeah.
But you could have an awesome system with a great products and services marketed really well, priced perfectly, not do well
Yeah.
because the people stuff.
Yeah.
And we just
Absolutely.
need to do a better job with that.
I mean, there are even Chick-fil-A's that aren't operating well somewhere, I'm sure, right? But like, um, how do you mentioned channels, and this is something I've seen abused in franchise systems, not I mean personally, but just in brands that I've worked with. How do you help rein in? Do you have any advice for, let's say I'm a franchisor, I've got franchisees that are using Slack or using whatever internal chat communication to kind of rage really there's a lot of negativity in there. Have you found a way that you can help that franchisor start to regain some dignity in the platform or help reach like how does it work or how have you seen that work well? Because I feel like there are some that would probably desperately want to know an answer to that question.
Yeah, well, I think you do it one franchisee at a time,
Mm,
right? And maybe you start off with those franchisees who are trusted, who are reasonable, who are level-headed.
yeah.
And, those franchisees are influencers, right? So I think you continue to do your job as a franchisor. You serve your franchisees, whether they appreciate it or understand it or not, and you help them make money, right? But you got to be transparent, you got to be good, but you also have to forge those relationships. But I meet some franchisors who are obsessed with wanting to be loved, with wanting to be liked,
Hmm.
wanting to keep franchisees happy. In the process of doing that, they're not always in service to their franchisees. If I did everything that makes my kids happy and just give them whatever they want, I'm
Yeah.
really not going to be a good parent. Sometimes there needs to be some tough love and some boundaries
Hmm.
if I want to be of service to my kids. And so there's a balance that's there.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be the best franchisor that we can be to work in service of our franchisees. But we have to communicate and be transparent, explain the why behind what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, but what I found that when they start to happen is suddenly there's less participation in those Slack groups. Some of those people stop showing up at convention and they kind of just start to self-isolate and they become increasingly marginalized.
Yeah.
So we got to do the best that we can. But again, I don't want to suggest that franchisors don't have responsibility because a lot
They
of
do.
franchisors, through poor communication or not being the best franchise, that contributes to that.
Yeah.
But I think for every franchisor that really is greedy and incompetent, 100 times over, there are franchisors who really are good and have the right intentions, but franchisees believe they're greedy and incompetent
Yeah.
because the communication hasn't been great. And that's one of the myths that I like to help people know. I want people to know you actually might have a better franchisee than you think. You might have
Yep.
a better business than you think. But until you embrace the ways of the wealthy franchisee, you're never really going to know.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. As you were talking, have you seen Ted Lasso?
Sure.
I love the show. I'm a former high school athlete coach, and so I love some of the craziness in the show. But the thing that I was thinking of as you were talking about that was early on season one, where the team hates him. They're like, "Who's this incompetent dude?" And they do the suggestion box. Do you remember the suggestion box
Of
scene?
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and pretty much everyone says wanker, and he gets ones like, and the pressure could be better in the showers. And so he goes and gets it fixed. He listens, he takes action on something that was important to somebody in feedback, And he didn't go and rub it in their face. He just fixed it and it kept doing the same thing and kept looking for ways to improve. And I feel like sometimes like that relationship is similar in franchising, and it just shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be because I think both parties, like you're saying, franchisor, franchisee, they both want it to work. They really do in most cases, right?
Yeah.
But it really comes down sometimes to listening, taking meaningful action where it matters. You can't listen to the suggestion box and do everything everyone wants because sometimes their ideas are not coming from a place of a lot of maybe foresight or long-term thinking.
Yeah. Look, if you want to be loved, then don't be a franchisor because it's just the nature of the think about all the tension that's just baked into the system. You
Yeah,
have all these people who want to be independent business owners, but they're held accountable to a system, right? You
yeah,
have two parties who think the other should be doing more marketing,
of
right?
course, of course.
You have one party who, makes money from top line sales, and the other, it's only through bottom line sales, right? If there's profit. Um, there's so many ways in which is conflict that's just there. It's a miracle that any of them work, but look at how so many of them do. But those tensions are baked into it, and so we really have to be the best versions of ourselves uh, in order to see how good our businesses are.
Yeah, I love well, and let's shift into that. So because this human factor really does make a difference. It really does, and we've hinted at a bunch of these things already. What are some of the core elements of like, and when we talk about the human factor, maybe let's break that down first. What do you mean by the human factor here? Just so everyone is really crystal clear on what's inside your head about that term.
Okay, so we have operational things. I
Hmm.
tell people in my presentations there's three factors that impact our business. First is everything circumstantial. The
Hmm.
outside factors such as politics, laws, the weather, the economy, and even policies that are imposed on us by the franchisor or by the industry that we're in. All things over which we have no control.
Right.
Now, a lot of franchisees love to point their finger at, the White House, the governor's mansion, this political party, the economy, the franchisor. They're scapegoating, right? I say they point their finger in 359 directions with reasons why the business isn't doing well. Not that these things don't matter. They absolutely do.
Hmm.
But they don't tell the whole story.
No.
It's why those people are complaining someone else is making money in
Yeah.
similar territories. So the second factor is everything operational. Our
Hmm.
policies and procedures and pricing and sales and marketing, right? All those things are vitally important. But I meet so many franchisees in the same system doing the same thing in similar circumstances in similar territories with
Yep.
a huge disparity in performance. It's not because of the operation, it's because often this third factor, which is all these human elements that directly impact how we execute operations.
Yeah.
Because great marketing is not just about advertising, it's also about patience and faith and the guts, to make the investment in the first place. Managing employees can't just be about finding people, training them, putting them to work. It also has to be about engaging them and
Mhm.
inspiring them and teaching them about teamwork.
Yeah.
Two people can, serve burgers to customers, right? One can do it like, okay, here's your order. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Next in line. Or the other is smiling and saying, hey, come back again, like kind of engaging them, creating an experience that feels good, so much so that they want to repeat the experience because there's that dopamine release, not just from the burger, but from the whole experience of being there. And
Yeah.
they bring friends with them,
Yep.
right? So and the opposite is also true, that I can be a jerk to someone, but think, well, they got their burger, that's all that matters. No soup for you. Be like that. Like, it's only about the soup. Your soup better be damn good in order for it to be okay to be you to be rude to people,
Yeah.
right? So we can provide a great product or service, but a bad experience
Hmm.
and ruin our business that way. So that's what I mean by the human factor. It's managing ourselves, our thoughts and our emotions, and then outwardly our relationships and how we make others feel.
Yeah.
That really is the X factor, and that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and how have you, so there are many franchise owners that aren't wired that way, a little more introverted, maybe a little less self-aware. How, how do we help somebody who's struggling? Let's give it like an example. Someone who's got personnel challenges on their team, and they don't really they haven't had experience. They haven't been trained. Really, I feel like experience can often be trumped by proper training and then systems that help reinforce the training, right? But how do we help that person to connect with the individuals?
No, it's a good question, and it's such a big thing in franchising, right? How often does a franchisor say, well, in order to buy a franchise, you have to have had 5 years of experience managing employees? No one says that,
Yeah, zero. I've never seen that. I never even heard that.
right? But is managing employees important to the business? Usually vitally so, right? Or maybe someone has come with a ton of management experience at a bank, at an investment firm, managing teams of educated, white collar people who are self-motivated. Not that there aren't issues, but it's
Mhm.
a completely different group than those who are coming in and boxing pizzas,
Right.
right? Like it's totally different groups. They don't have experience with hourly employees.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it'd be great if that training were there. And I'm sorry, I guess I forgot the actual main question you had asked
Yeah.
because I'm
No,
still talking about the problem.
you're going right down the path though. Is like so the question was how do we help that owner, that operator,
Got it. Got it. Okay.
to figure out how to start to go down this road of the people, the human factor of improving that.
Sure. So it's a skill like anything else. There's some people who are naturally have business acumen,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Well, they're at an advantage. There's some people who are naturally outgoing. Unlike the introvert you mentioned, they're extroverts, and so they're good talking with customers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to naturally have that trait in order to run a great business. So maybe you, as the owner, if you're not good at the people skills, but maybe you're really good with bookkeeping and looking at your P&Ls and finding those opportunities.
Mhm.
Maybe what you can be really good at is writing a really good help wanted post to bring in the outgoing people who can provide the customer experience, right? Who can do that. So it just has to be done within the business. It doesn't necessarily have to be done by the owner.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
all of
point.
us have to keep our thoughts and emotions in check.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point. So if I'm an owner and some people, they will not ever be people, right? Like they don't want it. They're not wired that way. They're awkward, that way. And, and that's okay. Uh, but they need to be self-aware enough. They need to be aware that that's important. And they need to, then, as you're saying, then they can go and hire the person to be maybe the shift managers. They know all have to be bubbling jars of energy and enthusiasm because they're not. So you can hire people that can complement them and where they're weak.
Yeah, one of my favorite books I used to read to my kids when they were young. It's about Anansi the spider, and he gets lost. He's got these 6 sons, and they all have their own talent. One can build a road, and one can drink lots of water, and one can skin an animal. And they all set out to rescue the father, and each one of them uses their talent, their superpower, to contribute to saving him. So in the end, he asked them, which one of you is responsible for saving me? And they kind of argue about, well, the answer is obviously all of them, right?
Yeah.
So in a business, you need people who can use one part of the brain where they're social and have emotional intelligence. But then you need other people who are more about like the prefrontal cortex, which is about problem solving and analyzing things. It's different skill sets, different part of the brain. And so, I think we need to recognize where am I good, where am I strong,
Hmm.
and where I'm not, I could force myself to do it, or even better, how about I outsource it and I'll hire someone else?
Hmm. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, that's,
So
I agree.
I think I'm probably more on the extroverted, more outgoing side. But I had other people, that I brought in to kind of take care of some other things where it wasn't my skill. But we have to have this stuff covered.
Yeah.
But all of us are impacted by our own thoughts and emotions. And we need to keep that in check so we can make good data-based decisions.
Yeah, and that's tough. I think ego gets in the way a lot. Owners, that's where they start to struggle is when ego gets in the way. It's hard to keep emotions in check. Or frankly, a lot of people put their lives on the line, right? They put their not their lives, but like their livelihoods on the line. They're all their nest egg, everything into this business opportunity. It's very stressful where that's your sole source of income. You got to be drawing out of the profits of the business and you've got none yet. And like I understand why there's a lot of strain. There really is in the system.
In the wealthy franchisee, I use this metaphor of hot air balloons that are designed to fly, but what holds them down are sandbags.
Hmm.
So I go through the most common franchisee sandbags, ways in which we hold ourselves down. And
Love
one of them
that.
is exactly what you said, Dave. It's ego, because ego is the enemy of service. Because if I have an ego in my business, I'm making it about me. So I'm talking about how awesome I am and how this business can't run without me. Well, that's not going to help you when you want to sell the business then, right? I want to make my business about my employees, about the customers,
Hmm.
because that's who matters, right? I'm not here to build my ego. I'm here to build my business, to build my income, to improve my life. And I'm going to improve my life by improving the lives of others.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is, throughout the wealthy franchisee, I profile the wealthy franchisee. And in every chapter, I have a different sidebar where I focus on different wealthy franchisees from all these brands. And I asked all of them, what makes you great? The most common answer was, I don't know, or I got lucky, something like that. The second most common answer, I've got a great team around me. Well, they didn't get lucky by having a great team. They built and maintained a great team.
Yeah.
None of the true wealthy franchisees said, well, it's because I'm awesome,
Hmm.
because I'm so great. It's because I'm better than others, right? Because they're servant leaders,
Yeah.
right? Their focus isn't on themselves, it's on other people.
Hmm.
So we want to replace that ego with humility. So when I moderate panels, which I do a lot of like great franchisees, um, I there's just this happened for outdoor living brands. They brought me in to moderate a panel, and they had like five different brands. We brought in the top franchisee from each brand. I said, "Why are you number one?" And one person says, "We do a lot of marketing." Second one says, "We treat our employees well." Third person says, "We get out in the community." And the audience was so underwhelmed because who isn't treating employees well or getting out in the community, right? But what I pointed out is as we got to know these panelists, they're all very humble. So the lesson there is humility is one of those really great traits, right? Definitely not ego.
Yeah. And we all have some ego, right? Like we all do. Humility is interesting. I was joking with my kids because they're all teenagers now, so they get sarcasm, but we're having dinner last week. And I was joking about something kind of in a braggadocious way, and the kid's like, "Oh wow, Dad!" And I said, "Well, you guys do know that humility is one of my greatest attributes, right?" A total joke, and, and they were all like, "Right," but they're putting the jokes aside. Like we have to. I've worked with a lot of CEOs over many years, and the ones that really struggle are the ones who read their own headlines. And that's where I see like we have to recognize like we might be good at stuff, but really everyone any factor of our life, someone's better than us. But we have to I don't know eat the humble pie every now and then. Just recognize that maybe we're doing well, but we don't walk on water. You know, like I find that's a challenge, and it's a challenge with successful franchise owners sometimes. But the really one, it's like Jim Collins, level 10 leadership, right? Do you remember that part of Good to Great? He's describing these people you're talking about of like, yeah, these guys that ran these crazy impressive businesses were super unimpressive and they were just kind. They cared about their people. That was like one of the universal truths about all of them. So I love what you're sharing. Thank you for
Yeah,
the
just
insights.
because they're putting value out there. And humility doesn't mean insecurity.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't mean you can't be really confident. If I'm really confident, it means I believe that I can accomplish something.
Yeah.
Ego is about thinking I'm awesome.
Yeah. It's the comparative, right? It's the I'm better than rather than I'm
Yes,
doing well. You can be confident that you're doing well. You and I both are. But does that
right,
mean we're arrogant? Does that mean
right.
no? Those two things don't have to coincide.
Yeah, like for me, I mean, I give information for a living, whether I'm speaking or writing or consulting, and the implication there is I know something you don't, so here, let me give that to you. And that might be the implication. That's not how I feel. I don't know what you know, but I want to share what I've learned. And if it helps some people, it's great. It doesn't mean that I don't also do want to do a lot of reading, a lot of listening to other people. One of the great things about my job is I actually do a much more listening than I do talking.
Yeah.
And I get a lot from that. And so when I'm talking, I'm sort of giving a book report. I'm sharing what I've learned. I'm not talking down to anyone. And I just think that we all need to put value into the world. We need to make ourselves useful
Yeah.
and use our businesses to improve the lives of everyone else. That's going to build our business because it comes back to us.
Yeah, I love that. And everything we've talked about today, we talk about all of the aspects of the human factor and being able to stay focused on what, not folks worried about the circumstantial, the operational, but really focusing on that. We've talked about how do we. I love the metaphor about the United States of America, one under God, indivisible. Like being able to help people recognize that we're all part of the same system. We should be working together. Like all of these things are elements that a franchise brand can do to provide value to the franchisees. And you said it a second ago, and I remind people we got two ears and we got one mouth. So there's a reason, like God put those on us to remind us that we need to listen more than we talk. And I think that's true across both sides of the aisle, right? Franchisors also sometimes need to stop acting like they got it all together and just listen because they've got 100 operators who are brilliant that are operating their model that might have ways to make it better. And that, in my mind, is the true superpower of franchising. It's not the model. It's not the model. It's the genius of all the individuals who are operating within the model, and all those iterations naturally are going to inspire great changes that can make the whole system better. If we harness that power, I think every brand becomes much better. But then it circles back to the last point we just made, which is humility, right? Like franchisees need to operate with humility. Franchisors need to operate with humility. And when you see those get out of whack, you usually see conflict and challenge. So, Scott, help us take us home for a minute. This is kind of wrap up time. Those are my thoughts. What are a couple of things you hope that somebody would take away from our ramblings today as we met?
Well, first of all, the thoughts you just shared are awesome. The only thing missing was the mic drop. So maybe we should end on that. I guess, I mean, to kind of sum up the whole thing is this, is that we have more control over things than we realize. We don't control everything, but we control a lot, and we have a lot of control over ourselves. Until we are our best version of ourselves in the business, we don't know how good the business is, right? Unless you're embracing the ways of these top franchisees, not just what they do or how they market, but how they think and how they manage emotions, right? Until you control your thoughts, until you're creating a great work experience for your employees, until you're creating a great experience for your customers rather than just engaging in transactions, you're never going to know how good you can lead. You're never going to know how good your employees can be. You're never going to know how much money your customers are going to spend. And so I think the ways the wealthy franchisee can be game changing for people. And I'm thrilled any chance I get to discuss it because I just feel in my bones that this stuff is real. It's what I've experienced, it's
Mhm.
what I've observed, and it's what I hope to see a lot more of.
Well, and I can just say this, Scott, a lot of people swear by your book and love high-fiving in the hallways, so it can't be all that bad. You got to have you got to have something there that's valuable. Speaking of giving value, if people want to get in touch with you, Scott, what's the best way? If somebody heard this and it's like, man, I need to follow up with Scott. I've got a question. How should they reach out?
Social media, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so I'm there. But my website is scottgreenberg.com, B-E-R-G.
Mhm.
Although if you type B-U-R-G, it'll still get there. I pay extra for that. Um, and it has contact information, information on my programs and services, that kind of thing. So either way,
Fantastic. Well, thanks for being our guest and for sharing so much value. I know it's a part of who you are, and I appreciate you making time for it.
it's a great conversation. Thanks for all the value you're putting out there, Dave.
Thanks, Scott.